Hello, I am live. StreamYard says. How is everyone? It's telling me there are 6 people in the chat. Sound off. Who's there? How you doing? How was your week? My week was pretty well. No, it was a mix. It was boring. That was the work side of things. Work has gotten kind of boring, but there may be some interesting things coming up soon. And there were a couple of really awesome things. If you've seen my latest video, you know I got a cat, and I am getting used to having a cat. Hello, Drone. Hello, Trace. Hello, Tom. Hello, Kai. The will to battle. The will to battle. Evie, yeah, Fitz. Fitzy Fitz is... She's around here somewhere. Rogue, good to see you. Yeah, Fitz had a slightly more exciting evening than usual. This was the first time that another human was in my flat since Fitz moved in. So it was interesting. Pete.
Hello.
Hey. And the fantasy drinker thinker.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you, man?
I'm good.
Channel.
Yeah. First time talking to you in person.
Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And Anita's here, and Trevor's here, and Kla. I don't know who that is. That doesn't say much to me. Navo, join us as well if you like, but I know some people are busy. Yeah, good to see you guys. How's your week been?
Not bad. Getting better. Had COVID 2 weeks ago, so now I'm feeling a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been good getting a lot of books read and getting projects working on, and I cleaned this weekend to the point that I feel better about filming videos now.
Yeah. Cleaning is I need to do that soon because of course when you get a long hair cat, you have twice as much crap on your floor. I mean, hair kind of crap on your floor as you're used to, which is awesome. Evie is asking if Fitz has gotten the memo to not pee in my bed. Yeah, it's actually kind of weird. Like, Fitz moved in, and in the first 2 days, she peed on my sofa 3 times. And then I figured out, because, I mean, anything like that going on is really my mistake. Like, I've done something wrong that the cat's not happy with, right? And if you can adjust things, then the cat will get the idea. I figured out scented kitty litter is a bad idea. She hates it. And as soon as I changed the kitty litter, she was like, oh, thank God, now I can go in the box. And she did. But I was unlocking room after room every day, sort of to limit how much she had to get used to start with. And then after a few days, another room. And when I opened up the bedroom, peed on my bed. Washed my sheets, washed the pad under my sheets. Next day, peed on my bed. Washed it all again. 3 days. And now she's just locked out of the bedroom for the moment. Eventually, I will... somebody told me that a really successful thing is like these little pheromone things you can get. And you plug them in and they sort of disperse calming pheromones for cats that are stressed or have just moved or whatever. And someone who had exactly the same problem with their cat told me they used that and it solved it.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Don't pee here, pheromones.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's a she, so it's not really marking territory because it's mostly a male cat thing. Female cats tend to pee in weird places because they're stressed, uncomfortable, whatever.
Yeah, stress.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see. Maybe she's just not a bedroom cat and won't ever be. I'm certainly not opening up my bedroom until I can be relatively sure that she won't just pee on my bed again. We'll see. Hi, Raph.
What's up, Raph?
Fairy librarian's here. Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure Fitz will. Evie is demanding Fitz be on screen. Fitz will unavoidably walk right in front of me at some point, and you'll see a big floofy tail just sort of go through the screen when she decides that she needs some attention. So,
yeah, I have a big golden retriever. So talk about hair.
Oh yeah,
hair is everywhere.
It's got to be with a golden retriever. It's got to be like twice as long as Fitz's hair.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
you find it everywhere.
Yeah,
big balls floating down the hallway.
yeah, and I'm a guy who lives alone, and I'm not like, I know some guys who are kind of cleaning kind of guys who are really fastidious about like everything needs to be. I'm not one of those at all. And I had a cleaning lady every 2 weeks, and she stopped coming after a while because she was Ukrainian and she just disappeared. She was a refugee, and I think maybe she just got a better offer for life situation in another city in Germany or something. She just split. So until I get another cleaning lady, it'll probably continue to be a bit messy. But yeah. Hello, Vero. Hello, Caro.
Yeah, most of the cleaning that I was doing in my room, my roommate has a dog. So even though the dog doesn't go into my room much, the hair still gets there somehow. So a lot of that was
it teleports. It's teleporting hair. I mean, even though the bedroom is locked and closed for days now, I find new balls of hair in there.
Yep.
Like either she's teleporting and she's going in the room and spreading hair around and not peeing on the bed, which would be really weird, or the hair teleports.
It's magnetic to clothing, so it'll stick right to you. And
exactly, it's probably just like hanging on the bottom of my pants leg and then dropping off. Rogue is reading Jenny Wart's Curse of the Mistwraith and Kenley's World of Storms. It's weird. I've tried both authors in shorter versions. I've read Liu's what's it called? The Paper Menagerie. I read all the short stories in that, and it's ace.
I gotta try those out. Yeah,
absolutely hot. So and yeah, it's such good. I mean, I love short stories as well. And Curse of the Mistwraith, it's one of those things where I'm just like, how many series am I going to start?
It's really good though. Really good.
I've heard that.
It's
I read To Ride Hell's Chasm.
Yeah,
and I
haven't done that yet.
Loved the first half, and I thought the second half was very repetitive.
I gotta shout out Dandelion Dynasty because that's my favorite series of all time. Like, it's freaking amazing.
It's so on my list.
Yeah, it's on my list too.
Hey, Andre is here. Andre is one of my meat space friends, so to speak. We worked together for years. We've known each other for, I don't know, 15, 20 years, something like that. Gurkenschnitzel, that's him.
Nice.
Yeah, Dandelion Dynasty. I've got the first book on my shelf, and I'm just like, it sounds like it's so much my thing.
Yes.
You know, it's just like everything I hear about it, I'm like, I want to start that, but
politics, people, and engineers.
Yeah, and Ken Liu's writing, like it all just sounds like totally up my alley. I'm on this right now, which is a reread, like a third or fourth reread, but it's been long enough that I keep going. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, this thing's in there.
Yeah, my reread is this right now.
Oh yeah,
I'm doing the same thing. Oh yeah.
Are you Are you a fan of Toll, or are you? Because a lot of people are it's a very divisive book within the series.
Yeah, I like it. I'm a fan of all of it. So
okay.
If I had to rank it amongst all the other ones, because they're all up here for me. But
I mean, I love the whole series.
Yeah,
But Toll the Hounds, a lot of people are like, it's my least favorite, maybe.
It's not my least favorite. No, I have to wait. I think I'll wait till I'm done to really really know where it stands, but
all right.
But I like it. I'm taking my time with the reread. It's been almost 2 months, so we'll see. Because I got plenty of other stuff to read too. But it's hard. It's hard to rank them for me because they're so good in and of themselves, each one, and so it's just it's hard to do that. Yeah,
absolutely. But I have no problem saying Memories of Ice, master book, and then
it is a master book.
Yeah. Everything else is
but I loved Reaper's Gale. I don't know what it is. I just love Reaper's Gale. That's probably my favorite so far, other than the Cripple God, maybe when I get to it again. But
the Cripple God, the way I remember it, because I've only read it once and it was a while ago, was first half kind of dragged for me, and the last half was just like explosions and laser beams and fireballs and just crazy shit, and it was amazing.
And the ending's spectacular. It's
awesome.
It's just incredible.
Yeah, DK says Tall Towns is a bit low. A lot of people seem to say that. There are I remember there are story threads in there that I absolutely loved and was always looking forward to, and there were other ones where I was like, can you stop this and get back to the other ones?
Yeah. But it was nice to get back to Genabacchus.
Yeah.
And so I'm enjoying all that part of it, definitely. I love the whole thing anyway. So
are you from Boston, Jared?
Near Boston, yes.
Okay.
Massachusetts, yep.
I was going to say, I don't remember hearing your accent so clearly as when you said part of it.
Part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can relate. Like when my Australian accent comes out, I say car and part and start and all of that.
I'm definitely like on the Toll the Hounds in the lower part.
Yeah.
But like Reaper's Gale, amazing. And then I also like Dust of Dreams, I think, more than most people. I think there's some really...
Dust might have been my lowest.
Yeah.
Like at the bottom would be Dust, and then maybe just above it Toll for me.
Yeah.
Oh my God. A viewer has joined. Who let you in? You don't have a booktube channel. I'm joking.
I am not a booktuber. No.
Yeah, I know.
And
you're Jerome.
I don't have the fancy setup. I don't have the camera. I don't have the professional microphone.
Absolutely unnecessary.
But you guys are some of my favorite YouTubers, so
yay!
I wanted to be here.
You're one of my favorite regular commenters. I think you've been with my channel since the beginning, or almost the beginning, and constantly commenting, and I appreciate it. And we were texting about it, Jerome and I, last time, about what can seem or feel like a divide sometimes. Like we have this community, but it's kind of like booktubers and people who watch, And I like the idea of these Sunday pubs being anybody who isn't an asshole can
that's a great
if they can find the link in my channel on the Grimoire Discord, they can join anytime, anybody. So
sometimes it feels like a group of friends that you're watching from a distance. You're looking in, but you're not really part of it unless you're a booktuber yourself.
Yeah, which I mean makes sense, because we a lot of us do this pretty regularly. We get in discussions and whatever, so we actually have sort of face-to-face ish or camera to camera contact with each other. We hear each other's voices, and you don't really do that with people who write you comments and text. So it's cool that you're here. What are you reading, Jerome? I know what stupid movies you're watching. Don't talk about those, but
I am reading Count Zero by William Gibson.
Oh wow! Okay, first First time?
Yes.
Okay.
I recently read the Neuromancer book and the short story collection, Counting Chrome.
Yeah.
And I noticed that every single Gibson story uses the word Chrome at least once. So I counted.
It was a big thing.
I counted already 4 instances of the word Chrome in this book.
Evie says you got a Hugo nomination.
Yes. I have a WordPress blog, and it was nominated for a Hugo award.
Oh, wow. Damn.
I got 2 votes.
Two
votes. One by the person who nominated me, and one by somebody else.
Getting nominated for a Hugo is like, that's enough.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be pretty excited about that. Damn, that's like very cool.
A huge thing to put on your business card.
Yeah, exactly. The Hugo Award nominated Jeroen Admiral.
Yeah.
Or is it like you're Dutch, right, Jeroen?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's probably Jeroen Admiral or something, isn't it?
Jeroen Thoughts.
No, I mean your actual name.
It's the name of my blog?
No, your name.
My name. It's the way you see it on the screen. Yeah, Jeroen.
It's almost Jeroen. Are there any old school RPG people around? Because there was a well, actually, here is something much more important. Evie,
long time no see.
Hey, I just came here to say if you don't want assholes on the stream, you really just need to kick Pete out. So
that's a good idea. Let's do that.
Personal bias.
There you go. Raph knows what I'm talking about. Sky Realms of Jeroen. It was a role-playing game.
Yeah.
It's got a really weird story. It was a role-playing game in the 80s. I think it was the 80s. And I bought all the books. I was just amazed with it because it had this amazing art style. Like all of the illustrations were done by one guy named Miles Teves. And they were all pencil drawings. Like really, really beautifully shaded with super believable weird creatures and stuff. And it all looked really real. You know, it was really, really well done. And it just didn't really get off the ground. It was kind of a hit for a little while, and then it just sort of disappeared. And then they made a video game of it in the CD-ROM age. And then it broke up in apparently a really ugly way, sort of. And Miles Teves, the illustrator, went on to do a lot of Hollywood illustration, like storyboarding and concept art and stuff like that. It's a really, really bad system mechanically, but amazing world. Really, really cool.
That's what I was always worried about with those, because there was a glut of games that came out in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I was always worried about, is it going to be a decent system, you know?
I'm a sucker for art. Like a beautifully illustrated anything, I'll probably buy it. Like game or anything else, I'll probably buy it if it's got gorgeous illustrations, because I'm just a frustrated painter in truth. One thing I wanted to wait just a sec. Be right back.
If you're not grabbing the cat, I'm leaving.
No cat.
I'm out.
No cat, not yet. No. Fitz is recovering from me having a guest earlier.
False advertising.
I didn't say I was getting a cat. I said, wait a sec.
All right, well, I heard that as I'm getting Fitz. So.
I'm not surprised, but I didn't say that.
Spoiler alert, if you have a pet, I subsequently no longer care about you. I care more about your pet. So.
Oh, really? You don't say? I would not have noticed.
I must say, the photos you're sending of Fitz, she looks really mean in those photos.
Yeah, but I mean, I was very consciously choosing to send you mean photos of my cat. She does sometimes. Sometimes she looks really sweet, and sometimes she looks like she's plotting your downfall.
Machiavellian, yeah.
Yeah, which is another good reason to lock her out of the bedroom. This week, I read this.
Yay, for his book.
Cool.
I was reading this, and then Tori wrote me and said, "Would you like an arc?" And I was like, "What a fucking stupid question! Why would you ask me that? Of course I want a fucking arc." The Bloodstones by Tori Tekken. It comes out in paperback on the 28th of November. I devoured it.
Soon.
Yeah. I devoured it in like 2 days. Wow. The very short review is, it starts slow. At the beginning, I wasn't so sure. By the middle, I realized I couldn't put it down. And by the end, I wrote her and I was like, when is this fucking second book coming out? It's really good. It's a really, really good start. I am relieved. It's kind of scary when you're someone who likes publicly reviewing books and a friend of yours writes one. You know,
you don't have to be like, oh, it was nice.
Yeah, I mean, I always want to be honest on my channel, and one of the basic rules on my channel anyway is I don't review books I don't like. I just don't, because I don't want to spend time talking about stuff I don't like.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
So if you're a friend of mine and you wrote a book and I never do a review, that's kind of a review in a way. There's Dan. I wrote him earlier and he didn't reply.
What's up, Dan?
Evie has shown her cat. There you go.
That sounds could be really weird out of context.
There's a different word for cat, which I did not use.
That's my only fan.
You have to send me that link later. Evie, Anita. Dan, why didn't you join us? Or why haven't you joined us? Or why don't you join us?
It's probably football. Earlier. I'm pretty sure the Eagles are playing right about now or soon.
Oh, it's an Eagles game. Okay.
Or the Steelers. Are they playing tonight? I know his wife is a Steelers fan and he's an Eagles fan.
He's an Eagle guy, yeah. Yeah.
The Patriots played in Germany this morning.
He actually wrote me that.
Demolished.
Yeah, they're horrible.
It was so bad.
I know.
My husband kept screaming at the TV. He's like, they're just they're ridiculous. This is an embarrassment on an international stage. And I'm like, well,
You know what? Nobody in Germany cares. I don't even know. I don't know why they're playing in Germany.
That's what I told my husband. I was like, so many people, no one they probably don't even know what's happening. He's like, that's why they're doing it over in Europe. It's because American football is getting bigger. I'm like, no, it's not.
It might be getting bigger, but it's going from this big to this big. I mean, it's a very niche interest.
Was the stadium full? I mean,
it looked like the stadium was full. I have a feeling that probably the majority of the fans that were there that didn't fly in were probably from the military bases around the U.S. military bases around.
Right, yeah. I know quite a few Germans, and I certainly don't know anyone that gives a damn about American football. Football over here is what you would call soccer, and that's like a religion, but nobody cares about American football. Jeroen, William Gibson, Count Zero, all of that, Neuromancer. How are you finding? I read those. I mean, I keep saying this because I'm old, but I read those when they came out. Back in 100 years ago, and I loved them. And back then, the whole idea of cyberpunk was a really new thing. How do they hold up now? I haven't reread them since the first time I read them forever ago.
I love them.
Cool.
But, the technology is a little bit dated.
Oh yeah.
They don't talk about the internet, but they talk about the Matrix and so on.
Yeah.
But starting a Gibson book always gives you a bit of a whiplash, no matter what other book you're coming from, simply because of his style, this sort of clipped style and all the words he invents. Yeah. But I love it. I love his writing style. So no matter that it's a bit dated, that doesn't matter. It's just a really fun story.
Cool. Yeah. No, I really, really enjoyed them back in the day, and he writes it always felt like a science fiction book that was a 30s hard-boiled detective novel, that sort of blunt clipped style and no real embellishment and that kind of thing.
Well, Neuromancer is more like a heist story,
like
a group of people, they are trying to break in somewhere, But this is more like a noir, hard-boiled story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to read Neuromancer for a class I took way back when.
Okay.
In science fiction and philosophy class, and so
oh wow,
it was neat. It wasn't my thing. It took me a while to get used to those made up words and stuff like that, and the slang, and the tech talk and stuff like that.
It's not an easy book.
Yeah, but you can tell how influential it's been over the years. It's big. It's a big book as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of I can't even imagine reading it now because like it was written before the internet, not before the internet, but before the web. Yeah. And I think I would just be constantly thinking, oh, that was wrong. Oh, yeah, missed that as well. Like so many of the ideas in it just either should have been in the book because they do exist, or he was predicting in a way certain things that just never happened. Fitz,
yeah, when he wrote it, he didn't even have a computer himself.
Yeah, I know. He wrote it on a typewriter, like a mechanical, totally mechanical.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing the things he comes up with.
Yeah.
While computers weren't even a thing yet.
Yeah, because it's so technology based, it's really good to like before you start reading it, make yourself really aware of when it was written and what was going on then, like what existed, because he had one hell of an imagination. He still does. I mean, I've read some of his newer stuff as well, and he's a smart guy.
Is he still? William Gibson is still alive?
Of course, he's one of my favorite people to follow on Twitter because he reposts really interesting shit from everybody else. Yeah,
I thought he was like in the same era as like Isaac Asimov and stuff.
No. Like 20 years later.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
30 years later.
Yeah.
I mean, Neuromancer was his first real book that anyone paid any attention to, and it was written in the 80s. I'm not sure exactly when, but
late 80s. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
My sense of time is awful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pete. You say I'm not hearing any of you. I missed that. That's an old comment.
Oh, wait, no, that was my response to, or his response to my question about the mic stuff.
Okay. Yeah. That was just about the echoes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That was
cool.
Resolved.
Good to hear, Dan, that you're getting back into videos. I recommend it.
I managed to film 2 videos yesterday, which is great. Both of them did.
Jerome just disappeared.
Oh no.
Yeah, I shot one yesterday, edited it today, up tomorrow.
I was gonna ask him if he read this.
Oh yeah. Blade Runner-ish.
Because I just read that.
So what'd you think?
I like it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Philip K is a crazy man, or was a crazy man.
Yeah. It was. I like it better than the movie. Actually, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, they've made a number of movies of stuff he did, and some of them, like Total Recall, I thought was actually a very good version of We Can Remember It For You Wholesale. He had the clumsiest titles sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think someone was mentioning it recently that they might be filming Ubik, which is one of his books, which is going to be interesting because Ubik's really weird. And I'd love to see how they... Jerome, no problem. Getting nervous is totally normal when you're on screen and you're not used to it. I can understand. Thank you for joining us anyway for a bit. That was that is something I want more of, like that we don't have a feeling that there's as much of a divide between people who do and don't have channels. It's not nobility and peasants or anything like that. Fantasy Brooks, finishing up. Oh, wait a sec. Wait just a sec. I have a drawer, which is the cat stuff drawer. And my friend who came over, I said, okay, first thing you have to do is go to the cat stuff drawer and get the treats out, and you give Fitz some treats. Then Fitz will like you. But I think he left the drawer open because Fitz is knocking around things on the floor that Shouldn't be on the floor.
Nice.
Raph, I sent you a message on Discord with the link.
I just did that too.
Dadgum, Pete! So, I know what Pete's reading.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Jared,
sure.
Did you say what you were reading already?
Yeah, reading Fugitive Prince and Toll the Hounds.
Fitz is not crazy about being picked up or held, so I'm going to let her.
I mean, that's a cat thing. You can't pick a cat up.
Yes,
the cat needs you. Will want you to
pick me up now.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and I'm on the Golden Fool, which I totally interrupted in the middle to read Tori's book.
Yeah, but that's a reread, so that's fair.
Yeah. I was just really excited. I've been talking to Tori for like months about her book, Raph. The famous Raph Bluegarst.
Sorry, it took me a while. I had to find a shirt and then find the link, and life is complicated.
It is sometimes.
Or I'm just really bad.
Do your signature.
Well, we'll see if it works.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's almost 10 in the evening. I feel I'm allowed to drink now.
Exactly. I've got red wine. I've been actually drinking since 5.
Well, I was shocked. I got a delivery today, which is weird on a Sunday, and it is 15 kilos of honey because I will be making new mead tomorrow. I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
I thought you were going to say, I didn't order honey. I didn't know where it came from.
Where did 15 kilos of honey come from?
From Latvia.
Latvia. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's one huge bucket full. It's one huge bucket of 15 kilos of honey. It's a lot.
I made mead once a long time ago. I used champagne yeast.
Okay, I'm using port wine yeast because it does, I mean, it's something that, can deal with a high sugar content and go really up with the alcohol. So.
It was neat because it made it a little bit more bubbly than what you get in the stores. So it was had a real nice champagne-y feel to it.
Yeah,
so I liked it a lot.
If you want it really fizzy or buzzy or bubbly, what you can do, and you should probably use plastic bottles for that, is like you take the mead out of whatever you use to actually brew it, put it into a plastic bottle, and then add like a spoonful of just sugar, 1 or 2 spoonfuls of sugar, because that creates more fizz. Like you need to put the sugar in, close the bottle and let it lie for a while. And that's why I said use plastic, because you don't want glass bottles to explode if the pressure gets too high.
That sounds like it would be bad. Dan asked me, have I read any China Miéville? Yes, I read the entire Baz Lag series as it was coming out years ago.
Those were the days.
I keep saying that. Perdido Street Station at the time blew my mind. It was creating I'm very much a world building fan, and it was such a weird like mix of Frankenstein and steampunkish stuff and aliens, maybe, sort of, and all sorts of things. I loved it. A lot of the other ones, I was like, I'm not so sure about the later books. Some of them, but the Perdido Street Station I thought was great.
I really enjoyed his standalone, like urban fantasy Kraken. I really love that one. It's weird.
I did not read that.
It's sort of a bit more lighthearted. It takes place in London, and a giant squid is missing from the museum, and then weird things happen and supernatural stuff happens, and wizards that use Star Trek as magic, among other things.
Okay. That sounds interesting.
It's very, very unique, and it's China Miéville doing China Miéville things. So if there's someone showing up and he's called a knucklehead, you can think about what you might expect there.
Yeah. DK Moon says you should get a cat too, Raph, or you should find one in your flat. I don't think there's a cat in your flat.
No, I developed an allergy, a cat hair allergy.
Oh,
since I left my mother's place. We've always had cats there, and she still does have cats. And at some point, when I visited her, I started sneezing a lot. And I used to have a dog. I would like to have a dog again, but
dogs are a lot of work.
I have the bunk bed, which makes it so easy to avoid the dog sleeping in your bed.
Yeah, that's true. I have to shut my door so that my cat doesn't not sleep on my bed, but pee on my bed.
Yeah.
Hi, Joanna. Got a vacuum and go to Trader Joe's. So American. Trader Joe's. You're muted, Evie. I can see you talking, but I can't hear you talking.
I was just gonna say I've never been to a Trader Joe's, and people are shocked when I say that, and I'm like,
Evie, this is blasphemy. How dare you not have been to Trader Joe's?
How dare you?
I'm sorry. What? You need to be friends now?
There is one like 2 towns over, but like I can just go to Shaw's.
That's a small price to pay for the experience.
But you live
Joe's.
You live kind of rural, right, Evie?
Nah, it's the burbs. Suburbs.
Really, yeah.
Okay. I haven't lived in America since 1993, I think.
I grew up in a very rural area out in the boonies, as they say.
Right. Yep.
But no, I live in the suburbs now.
Right. Yeah, no, I did. I returned to America once years ago. This is probably going to sound weird, to do a 3-month meditation retreat in the mountains. And the place that I went to stock up on dried food and canned food was Trader Joe's. I think that's the only time I've ever been to a Trader Joe's.
Well, I've never been to the US, so I haven't had the pleasure yet.
No.
I'm sure there is an equivalent in your country, so.
Yeah, not really.
Really?
Trader Joe's to me is driven by a very particular American desire for like a combination between something that makes you feel like you're doing the right thing and convenience.
So Whole Foods, basically.
Yeah, but in a supermarket where you don't actually have to ever touch dirt.
I mean, we do have a bunch of like sort of more like Whole Foods style supermarkets nowadays, but I feel like Germany has always had so much Whole Foods in every supermarket that we don't need a specific shop for that.
Yeah. And I mean, also the other thing that's really accessible in Germany, at least in the 2 cities I've lived in, is there are direct farmer markets.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Like there are like within 10-minute walk, I can go to 3 different every week farmers markets where the actual farmer and his family are standing there selling you their straight out of the ground produce. Which is what I meant about like touching dirt, because their vegetables are dirty.
Exactly.
Cat in the background. Fitz exploring.
I got this is Phoebe here. My puppy.
A puppy.
She doesn't actually like being up here, but
yeah, her head is about as big as my cat. So
okay, puppy.
They had Dutch stroopwafel.
I won't torture you anymore. Go lay down.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know if they were Dutch, but they were called stroopwafels, whatever brand it was, at my local grocery store. So, I think it's just, the commercialized version of that.
I don't know if the Netherlands has ever done anything good for the world other than grow tulips and stroopwafel, but it's worth it for the stroopwafels. Like they've got them in actually, strangely enough, I always get them here in Berlin in a drugstore or a cosmetics and drugs and whatever store that has a small section of food, and they always have really, really good. For people who don't know what they are, they're kind of like large, thin cookies that are kind of waffly with a layer of honey, and then the squished honey sandwich, basically, of waffle cookie things, and they're
insanely good. The honey waffles are
so yummy.
I've said it before. Winnie the Pooh is my role model, and everything with honey in it does, in fact, get my attention immediately.
Now I understand you, Ralph.
I made a video about it where I called it the perfect novel.
Explains everything.
So then, so I guess, Raph, I'm very confused then. Why did you say you had to find a shirt? You should have said you had to find pants then.
Exactly.
Well, you don't know if I have some on, do you?
Check. No.
If you were Winnie the Pooh, you would.
See, that's an interesting thing that like everyone thinks of Winnie the Pooh as this yellow bear with the red shirt. But if you actually look at the original drawings, the original illustrations for the books in the 1920s, the bear looks very, very different.
Yeah.
In those.
Yeah.
I do in fact prefer those old
The city. Yeah. I have heard over and over of that, and I want to get back to Miéville at some point. Has anyone? Vero says also that it's really good.
The city is nice. It's a bit more. It's not a fantasy book. It's urban, a bit of a police procedural. It's like more like liminal feel. There are certainly things going on that are not like you expect the world to be. It's sort of set somewhere, possibly in the Balkans. It's quite difficult to explain because it's unclear, and it's like the city and another city. So there's like two cities, but they're basically on the same place. So some buildings and some streets and sometimes just like one side of a street belongs to the one city and the other to the other city. And obviously you're not allowed to cross from one city to the other except at like specific border crossings and stuff like that. And then there's a police procedural about a murder there. I don't know if you've read The Land Across by Gene Wolfe.
I have not.
It's sort of has a similar vibe, which is sort of like this weird uncanniness in a post-communist, post-socialist Eastern Europe place in a way. Although Land Across is it's Gene Wolfe, so it's a first-person unreliable narrator and
weird and dreamlike, and maybe none of it happened at all ever. And
yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Which is why I love Gene Wolfe.
Yeah, Gene Wolfe is hands up. Who's read Gene Wolfe?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Just me and Raph. Yeah. I just finished Book of the New Sun, third reread, doing discussions with Philip and
It's on my shelf, but I haven't read it yet. So we'll get there.
I love it
it's
a lot.
Worth it. It's really good, but it's nothing like any of the fantasy anything I've read before. It's quite different and it's weird.
It's very unique. I love it a lot. I've read it like 4 or 5 times now. I love it a lot. I've also read obviously some of his other stuff. I do like The Wizard and the Knight, which is if you're slightly interested in Arthurian stuff, it might be something.
I started that years ago because I was like, "Woo, more Gene Wolfe, cool," and I was bored. I didn't get through the first one.
Have you read the Fifth Head of Cerberus?
Yeah,
that's a collection of novellas, right? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3 different. I think it's 3 different novellas.
Stories. Yeah. And I've read A Borrowed Man, which is a crime fiction about a fictional crime author.
A crime fiction about a fictional crime author.
It's in the far future, and libraries do in fact
Gene Wolfe.
Yeah, and libraries do in fact no longer sell, borrow, lend out books, but they do have cloned or recreated authors that you can borrow for like a while and talk to the author, and they talk to you about their books. And the narrator is a recreated, cloned, or whatever author of crime fiction, and he tries to solve a crime during that story. It's very Gene Wolfe. It's like the last
in a book. So he's in crime, being a fictional crime author trying to solve it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that sounds very Wolfe.
And there's like a second one of those, which is called, the first one's A Borrowed Man, the second one is Interlibrary Alone. I haven't read that one yet, and that was the last thing Gene Wolfe wrote. It actually got published posthumously because, you know, and the insane stuff is like, that man was like 90 when he wrote these books, and they're still like incredibly smart.
Yeah. No, he was a bright guy. Rogue is saying he binged Book of the New Sun last year, and Library Rat is about to start. Shadow of the Torturer. Yeah, they're really good books, but some books I read like this one, and I get emotional about them. I love the characters. I ache with the characters. I want to punch the bad guys in the neck. All of this sort of stuff. And Wolfe,
you want to punch Severian a lot during that book.
Yeah, often you want to punch the main character in the neck. But mostly, to me, it's not a very emotional experience, like reading.
No.
It's much more intellectual. There's an intellectual satisfaction that I got from putting things together, because a lot of the basic story even is a mystery for you to solve in a way. Fairy Librarian wants to read Wolfe scared. The thing, Philip said it recently, because we were sort of reading Book of the New Sun together, and he did a video where he was talking about it, and he said you don't have to be scared about anything, but it's good to go into it being prepared to relax in being confused and being okay with not knowing everything that's going on. Right? It's not intellectually challenging in that if you don't understand certain things, you won't get the book at all. You can just read the book.
Yes, especially with Book of the New Sun, you can just read it as an adventure story of someone going through a really strange place and having really strange adventures.
Exactly. And
the whole duel scene in the first book in Shadow of the Torturer, you know what I talk about, right? I don't want to spoil anything, but
that's not really a spoiler to say that they're fighting with poisonous flowers.
Yes, and I just love the idea of them having like
these giant flowers that they're swiping at each other.
Yeah,
but there's like an acid trip.
A lot of the book. I mean, I have a history with acid, and a lot of the book, I'm like, yeah, okay, I can relate to that sort of. Yep, get it.
On that note, I do have to go. I have to drop to finish some chores. So if you're still going,
I thought you were gonna say you've got to go drop some acid. Yeah.
Well, you know. Chores.
Yeah.
No,
so-called chores.
If you guys are still going after I'm done,
yeah, cool.
I'll hop back, or I'll be in chat. So
good to see you, Evie.
Yep, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I would say you can read Book of the New Sun just as a story and totally enjoy it. And there will be bits where you'll be going, what was that about? Or why did that happen? Or why didn't this happen? Or whatever. And if you can just chill and go with it and be relaxed about the confusion and not necessarily understanding a couple of things, then it's okay.
Yeah, I think one thing that I find important about Book of the New Sun, you need to have a love for puzzles, because these books are full of hints and stuff. You need to have a love of puzzles, but you also need to be comfortable with the fact that for some of these puzzles, there is no objective correct answer. You will not get that. Your interpretation is as valid as any other, and that uncertainty is important for the book.
Yeah, there are. We finished all 4 of them. And there are a number of unanswered questions at the end where the author never goes, this is what I was talking about. You know, it's just up to you to interpret or decide or whatever.
Although I do appreciate the balls of Gene Wolfe when he goes like at the end, when Severian goes like, well, and if you didn't understand the story, then just read it again. And I'm like, did you just tell your readers to go and reread it if they didn't get it? Yeah, he does. But he's right.
He pretty much does. He has one of his characters tell you to do that. But yeah, it's Mr. Wolfe.
It's interesting because he's correct. I've reread it multiple times, and yes, it helps to reread it because you see very different things.
Absolutely,
it's very much like Malazan in that regard.
I just finished the 3rd reread, and there's definitely stuff I got out of it I did not get earlier. I think the first time I read it, I was in my 20s, so I was stupider. And now, not to offend anyone that's in your 20s, but you are stupider than you will be in 20 years. At least I hope so.
At least you have read more stuff that you can make more connections with, like a puzzle book, like Book of the New Sun. It helps to know more stuff.
Yeah,
especially with the there's a lot of references to literature that has shifted and changed over time. So you need to know the story to recognize it, because he has twisted it in all kinds of ways. When the story of Theseus becomes a submarine war story, and you're like, wait, that's what he did there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I was really dumb in my early 20s.
Oh, I'm still in my 20s, and I still recognize that I'm dumb, but I'm smarter than I was when I was like 2 years ago.
Exactly. I mean, it would be really depressing if you were my age and still as dumb as you were in your 20s. I'm not much smarter, but I'm definitely smarter than I was in my 20s.
I don't know. I feel like I'm fighting hard to remain stupid.
Okay, I am not buying that bullshit, Raph.
Yeah, that's not true.
I've seen too many of your videos to think you're stupid. You play a smart guy really well.
Yeah.
Fairy Librarian is not even 20 yet, so she or he? I don't know.
That's Kat.
Okay, Kat. Okay. She says she's uber dumb. That's probably not true
That's
either.
probably not true either. Yeah.
It's not so much about saying that 20-year-olds are
people
dumb.
Who study Latin and ancient Greek are not stupid.
Yeah,
you will be a lot smarter in 20 years than you are now. Fitz, say hi to everyone. Fitz totally is not into
the wisdom score increases with your age.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
We hope, yeah.
Which means you should all be priests, because that is really good when you have like a high wisdom score. Let's all become clerics, because now we can use that wisdom.
Clerics of YouTube. There we
go. Yeah, probably.
Worshiping the AI.
Clerics or druids.
Yeah.
Okie Dude is 22. Okie Dude, you look like you're about 14 in your photo. Which is great, because that means like when you're my age, you might look 40, which is cool.
Yeah.
So Matt, you mentioned you really like world building and like Perdido Street Station. Have you read City of Last Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky?
I have not read any Tchaikovsky, and I really, really want to, because I keep hearing so many things. I want to read
Children of Time. Everyone wants to read
Children of Time. Yeah, exactly. Intelligent Spiders and all of that. I'm interested in that, but I also remember seeing a review from someone about City of Lost Chances.
It's really good. And I think
it sounded pretty interesting.
Yeah. The reason I say that is because I've had people say to me, just like, oh, if you like City of Last Chances, you should go read Perdido Street Station. So eventually I'm going to pick it up. But vice versa, maybe. I think the world building in City of Last Chances is really good in the way that he like combines all these different things. It could just the different sections of the town and like their purposes for the actual city, and then like them all coming together for rebellion, and then the dichotomy of rebellion there is just really interesting.
That does already. I mean, it's sort of a vague, high level description, but that sounds like Perdido Street Station. Totally.
Yeah.
He goes into the city a lot, like the different areas of the city and the mood and atmosphere. And there are a number of different species, intelligent species in the city. And weird science shit going on. And it had a very like if Frankenstein was a full-blown steampunk novel and had maybe aliens in it. That's what Perdido Street Station felt to me like. So, I don't read things politically nearly as much as like Raph does.
To me, it felt like a fantasy city setting with a bunch of races that you also threw in steampunk and stuff like that. I really like that. That's my role-playing background take on it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm probably just as role-playing nerd as you are, and I I totally
probably is me too, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have a shelf that's like, I don't know, 1.5 meters wide and as tall as me. And the top half of it is only role-playing books, and the bottom half is only photo books. So,
yeah, I have some of the only, like most of the only print books I own are all role-playing game books.
Yeah.
But when we talked about like weird fantasy species, whatever fantasy city settings, has any one of you guys read the Gareth P.I. files by Glen Cook?
No,
I have not.
I've read Black Company, but not anything else by him.
So the Gareth stuff is interesting because they're like sort of a bit of tongue-in-cheek, hard-boiled detective stories in this weird fantasy city that has like, Glen Cook's general, love to have fantasy ideas and species and whatnot that are outside the general box, and he does that a lot there. I'm not sure how well they've aged. They're certainly the main character is at least as male gazy as a certain detective from Chicago, although from my memory, he actually does get laid, and he does not focus on teenagers, which makes it less creepy in some aspects. But there is still that level to it, because on the other hand, if you're parodying up to a point the hard-boiled detective of the 30s, that guy needs to be horny, because that level is just in there.
That's part of what it is. Yeah.
But they're really fun, quick detective stories about this fantasy detective, and there's like giants and half giants and all kinds of other species, including cannibal unicorns, because the unicorns there like to hunt and kill and eat men.
Okay, then they're not cannibals because they don't eat unicorns.
They might also eat unicorns. I'm not quite sure about that.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
So quickly from the chat. Yeah. Vero, are you saying that you are 52, or are you saying that I am 52? Naive in some things, wise in others, forever curious to keep you young. That doesn't sound like me. So she must be talking about herself. I'm always surprised when people on YouTube are old like me, or as old as me. I'm 53. Oki is asking me what the hell is that accent. A lot of people ask me that. I was born in America. I grew up in Australia, and I've lived in Germany for 18 years. So I think my
most of the Australian comes through to me.
It really depends a lot on who I'm talking to. Like if I get on the phone with my relatives in America, it gets really twangy, and if I am hanging out with my mates in Australia, it gets really, really ochre, which is to say very Australian. Anyway.
Yeah, Jeroen, I've noticed your growing love for Black Company. It is definitely one of my favorite fantasy series of all time.
It's very good.
So good. I've read it like 5 or 6 times now, and it keeps getting better, and I just keep discovering more bits and pieces in there. It's so deceptive because you read it for the first time and it seems so simple and straightforward on the surface, and then you're like, oh, but wait, there's so much in there somewhere.
There's a lot more going on. Yeah,
I gotta get to that. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I always think. I mean, of course, it's not a problem or a mistake, but I always think it's funny when someone's read Malazan and they haven't read Black Company, because I'm always like, where all that marine stuff comes from, right? Not that Erickson didn't invent anything himself, but he was very inspired. He has said himself he was very inspired by Glen Cook and the Black Company.
Well, he also read a lot of Vietnam War fiction too. And I have read a lot of that stuff.
I'm currently reading the things they carried, and I'm very much. I'm reading it. I'm saying I'm really appreciating it. I guess that makes more sense.
Yeah, and seriously bruised by it. I read that with Tori earlier this year, and then we did a chat with Philip Chase, the three of us, about the things they carried.
Yeah.
And oh my God, that's a traumatic book, but it's so good.
It's good.
I read it so well written.
I read it.
The audiobook is really interesting because Bryan Cranston is actually narrating the audiobook, which makes it very. He does a really good job of it.
Yeah. Remind me, who is Bryan Cranston?
Breaking Bad.
The Breaking Bad guy.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Good voice for it. Yeah. Good voice.
I'm currently working on a project on like war in fiction kind of thing, and I reread Slaughterhouse 5, and I felt that the things they carried is a good addition to that whole idea of like how war is portrayed in fiction, and how that portrayal has changed from, say, the 19th century towards the 20th century, and how possibly that's sort of my thesis at the moment, that you need to kind of move into the surreal and possibly the fantastic or science fiction or whatever to portray the sufferings of war in the age of mechanized warfare, because
especially Vietnam.
Because the language of the real does not actually suffice to portray that.
There were a couple of sequences in the things they carried where you're just like, this is fantasy fiction. I mean,
you have to learn
getting across the real non-fictional experience that he and others had in such a way that it almost feels like a horrible nightmare, like otherworldly something, Where
you wonder how much to trust a narrator, at that point.
Yeah, well, and he also, I thought that was really cool in that book. I mean, he makes it really clear. He
calls it a work of fiction, right?
He says at one point, I am not telling you the truth.
Yeah.
Right? I am communicating experience to you. And to do that effectively, I can't tell you just the truth because it wouldn't mean anything to you.
Yeah, and he does also do this wonderful thing where it's like, you add all these normal bits which didn't happen, so people can trust you on the crazy shit that did happen and believe you that stuff was real. So you have to add the normalcy somewhere.
Yeah. Yes, Okie dude. I am the one that Tori and Philip did the things they carried with. Do I look so different? I mean, I do need to cut my hair. I'm looking kind of hippie-ish here with my 6 millimeters. I need to get that back down to 3.
Speak for yourself there, man.
I used to have. I don't have wavy golden locks like you do, but I did used to have really depressing dead straight hair down to my nipples. So in university I thought, okay, I'm going to try it out once, and I hated it and shaved it after that.
I used to have a mohawk, and then I kind of stopped shaving because I got too lazy for that. And
of course you used to have a mohawk. If anybody on BookTube I know used to have a mohawk, it's you. Who else?
Internally it's still there.
Exactly. Jerome says he is seeing so much Cook in Malazan now. Yeah. It's like, to me, Malazan always feels, because I have read Cook, and I read Cook in the Black Company before Malazan.
Yeah,
when
me
I
too.
Started Malazan, it felt like some fantasy novel, switching back and forth between some fantasy novel and Black Company. And then this bit's not about the soldiers, it's some fantasy novel. Then it goes back to the Black Company, and it's got a real. Have you read Pete? Have you read Black Company?
So I have not. I'm actually starting Black Company in January-ish.
Okay,
so there's the intention, and it's going to be really interesting because I'm planning to reread Malazan around that time as well. So I'm getting into like some of the Esselmont books, and I think Gardens of the Moon is slated for like April-ish.
Okay.
So
that'll fit pretty well. Actually, ping me when you do that. I'm not making reading plans, but I am mood reading, and if I'm in the mood, I've been wanting to reread Black Company because I went through a oh my god, I'm in love with the Black Company phase, and I read all of them up to a point, and then I stopped dead. And there are a few that I haven't read towards the end, and I want to reread them at some point. So let me know.
I will make a note.
They're so good. I still need to reread them because I made videos for all of them all the way up to She Is the Darkness, and then I kind of stopped making videos for Water Sleeps and Soldiers Live, which I still need to reread again.
Yeah,
but I know where they're ending. I know the ending. I love the ending. It's so good.
Eric says there is a reason. There's a reason Reaper's Gale was dedicated to Cook. Yeah.
Totally. When you said like the parallels, I think especially with Gardens of the Moon, and you have that one squad going as an advanced group in this like foreign city, and you compare that to Shadows Linger, where you have basically the same setup, and they're hanging out in this like weird city they don't understand and trying to get to grips with the underworld, the criminal underworld of the city in a way, and you have the same thing basically going on in Gardens of the Moon there with Darujhistan.
Yeah.
Obviously, Darujhistan is a much nicer place than Juniper.
Yeah, I would love to see. I don't know if this is the case. Maybe someone who's read further in Malazan than I have can tell me. I would love to see some of the books after the Malazan Book of the Fallen be heavily set in Daruzhistan. Like Daruzhistan was one of my favorite locations in the 10 books.
Well, I mean, there's only one book that is really much after that, and that's The God Is Not Willing, and that one is set on. That's not set. I mean, I guess that's Genebacchus.
It's North Genebacchus. North Genebacchus.
Yeah, that's the point. It's around the place. It's around Silver Lake, which you may remember from the beginning of House of Chains.
Yeah. Okay.
And there are one or two scenes set outside of Daruzhistan, but mostly it's around Silver Lake.
I just loved. I mean, also in role-playing games, I'm a sucker for an interesting city campaign.
Yeah,
I think they're hard to do if you're a DM.
Yeah.
But like a cool city, or in video games as well. Like
Esselmont does detail quite a few of the other cities on the other continent with I think Unta maybe, and
there's some Unta and some of the
there has to be some
Path to Ascendancy as well.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And there's certainly some really interesting stuff in Stonewielder.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I want Esselmont to write more stuff about Ipshank and What's His Buddy. Those two are so good.
Yeah.
I love those.
Yeah.
Did I mention I read this week?
No, you have not mentioned that you read it.
No. For anybody who has joined the chat later, I'm competing with a couple of people like Andrew Meredith to be Tori's biggest cheerleader. Tori, our Tori from Tori Talks, wrote a book. Not her first book, but her first book. It was funny actually. We got to be friends, and she was like, "Oh, I could send you a copy of my book if you want. You won't like it though." I was like, "Why?" And she said, "Yeah, exactly. Why? It's YA, sort of." And I was like, "Yeah, if it's YA, I probably won't like it, but I would like to have a book by you." So she sent it to me. That was Phased, which I can't reach at the moment. But this one is not at all YA, and it's pretty fucking hot. I'm going to be doing a review in the next week or two, where I mostly gush about it, and not only because she's a good friend of mine, but because it's actually quite good. I really, really enjoyed it. I was pretty hooked, and now I'm pissed off that she's not Philip Chase and is publishing a book every 2 or 3 months.
Well, to be fair, Philip
Chase hasn't written them.
He wrote that so long ago.
Yeah, exactly. No, she is starting. I think she said she's going to start work on The Queen's Wolfe, which is the second book, in January, February. So who knows how long it'll take. We'll be patient, but it's always a good sign when I get to the end of the book and I'm like, okay, where's the second one? Give me. And it's not quite there yet, but it's some hardcore stuff, and it's not. I think I get the feeling it will be more magic-y later, but it's very fighty at this point, not very magic-y. And it's a pretty brutal world and some very cool characters, some really flawed characters who you like and want to punch in the neck at the same time. So yeah, it's good. We've got some phased
punch in the neck part, because
there's a couple of characters you just want to repeatedly punch them in the neck, but then there's also some other ones, like some of the main characters are so flawed in different ways that you're like, I enjoy watching you run around in the world and do things, but you need a slap. Someone needs to slap you.
Yeah. The Fitz problem.
Yeah, well, Fitz, I just always feel like, oh, Fitz. I'm right now in the Golden Fool, where he's gotten himself in the same situation basically that he was in the middle of Farseer again. Mm-hmm. It's like I've got all these competing people that want things from me and things that I want to do, and I can't really do any of them well. And
I think it works. Fitz. It works so well because I do see Fitz making a lot of mistakes I usually also make. So I recognize it doesn't make it easier to read about Fitz. Same with I'm currently rereading the Memory, Sorrow, Thorn thing by Tad Williams, and Simon Mooncalf is very much someone I recognize way too much of myself in him.
Well, hopefully, I haven't read those ever. I've got them on my TBR shelf.
They're okay.
And anybody whose last name is Mooncalf, I hope he's a bit of an idiot.
I mean, his actual last name is not Mooncalf, but people call him a Mooncalf because he's a bit of a.
Oh, okay.
So here's the thing: he's like 14, 15 in the beginning of the book, and I think I just made a long video about like where I talk about like where I situated and so forth. But the point is, someone was like, "Yeah, Simon has ADHD," and I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. Simon very much seems." Displays a lot of symptoms that people with ADHD have, like me. And it's probably why I really hated that character when I read it as a teenager, because I did see a lot of the same flaws I see myself in there, but I was at the time not diagnosed with ADHD. And I just I'm willing to give him grace now because I recognize myself in him without hating myself too much about it. So I think that has changed, but it's interesting. And I mean, Fitz is a similar character.
That's exactly like I said to Derry once. Fitz is such an idiot, and she said, "Yeah, but he's our idiot." It's like I think everybody. That's the thing I like most about him is it's an epic, heroic, crazy, big stakes fantasy thing going on, and he's just a guy. And he's just a guy who is not even good at most of what he's trying to do, and I think a lot of us can relate pretty well to that. Let me answer this from Kat. She says she's so nervous about reading the Bloodstones because I don't want to dislike my friend's book. I can't tell you you're going to like it, of course, because I don't know your taste and I don't know whether the things in it will appeal to you, but I can tell you that it's well written. That much I can say. Yeah. Pete has read some of it. I don't think you're finished yet. Are you, Pete?
No. I only have an electronic copy, so it's going a lot slower for me.
Yeah. What? I mean.
Yeah. Yep.
Everybody only has an electronic copy. I don't think there are physical copies yet. Yeah.
There aren't, but just me particular, I don't. It's harder for me to read electronically than it is.
Oh, really?
Physically, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
It's an attention thing.
Oh, okay. But you would agree. I think.
Yeah. So far, I'm like.
So far, it's well written.
Maybe like a third of the way in, and it's well written. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely well written. As far as the taste thing, I mean, like I said, it's a pretty fighty book. There's some ugly politics. There are definitely some love to hate characters. In fact, there was. I'm kind of a sucker for pretty basic heroes, like people who want to do a good thing and have some sort of integrity and actually mean well in the world, even if they're not good at it. And there was only one character out of the main characters where I was like, I actually respect him. All the rest of you, I either want to punch in the throat or just slap some sense into. But there's one guy in it where I was like, you're actually looking like you could be a good guy in the end, But I really enjoyed it. And I don't think Tori, the way I know her, would take it personally if it's just not your taste. Like I said, she gave me her first book and said, you won't like it before I even received it. So
she's been on both sides of the coin. So she's she's a good egg.
Yeah. I mean, I what you said earlier, Matt's like I don't talk about books of friends that I don't like. I will not review those books. I only talk about books that I dislike if I think there's a general merit to be had from talking about the negative stuff. Like Wheel of Time, where I think it's important to talk about all the bad things in those books.
Sure.
I think that's worth it. But if it's just like, look, it didn't work for me, then no one's getting anything out of that, especially with, someone, where that can actually impact their sales or whatever. I mean, not that people with the self-published books sell that much. You know what I mean? It's like, no one's getting anything out of that.
Some of them do. But yeah. I mean, I unfortunately have repeatedly made it quite public. I don't review any book I don't like. So if I don't review a friend's book, they know what I thought of it.
But see, here's the thing: like, what I have a huge respect for anyone who finishes writing a book, and I'll always gladly talk to people about their experience writing the book and their thought and their process and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, I think that will actually give potential readers a much better insight than me sitting there and going like, "Well, I didn't like this, this, and this, and this." But having like a conversation about stuff and going like, yeah, well, this is what I thought there, and this were my goals, and this is what I wanted to do. I think that builds a connection between the writer and the reader that can potentially enhance the reading experience, and work much better than me just going like a 10-minute spoiler-free rant fest. I mean, no one will, get anything out of that.
Sure. I mean, Tori and I were texting sort of constantly for about 2 hours right after I finished the book. Yeah, and I was giving her not only positive, mostly positive, but giving her a lot of feedback. I'm curious about this one because I've been thinking about it for a while. Tornall says he's our idiot, but he's an idiot, but he's our idiot. I feel the same way about Matt from Wheel of Time. No. Pete, Jared, have you guys read the Wheel of Time?
I did. Yeah.
In college, I read the first 5 books, and then college happened, and then I tried reading Eye of the World like a year ago, and it was okay, but I wasn't feeling it. And eventually just like the looming weight of like, I need to read Wheel of Time kind of just was like, I'm just not going to have it on my TBR until I really want to have it on my TBR.
Jared, how old were you when you read it?
I read them as they were coming out. so
you were young.
Yeah, I was young. I wasn't that impressed with the first one, Eye of the World. But when I was young back then, you only got books by going into a bookstore. Yeah, and there was no Amazon or anything, and I had no exposure to reviews that we get nowadays and stuff like that. So I ended up picking The Great Hunt up eventually, and I thought that was much better. So then by that point, I had to wait for the next ones to come out. And so I just, as they came out, I read them. So I didn't feel the slog that a lot of people talk about.
Yeah, I hate that term so much.
Yeah,
because either the entire 14 books are a slog or none of them are.
Yeah, because I was waiting for them, So when I got the new book, it was like, oh, new book, okay, good. And if that was like, I don't know if he repeated stuff from earlier books, then I was fine with that because it had been a year or two since I read the last one, and so I liked them. They're not my favorite book. They're not my like top 10 or anything like that, but they were a nice read when they came out at the time they were released, and I was interested in the magic and how it was happening and some of the action was fun, and so it was a pleasant read for me.
I used to work in television, and I think a lot about how shows and movies are made. So I was watching the Wheel of Time show recently, and especially in the second season, I kept going because I haven't read the series. I DNF'd Eye of the World at like 250 pages twice. But I
haven't missed that much.
No, but there's always FOMO is always somewhere in my thoughts. And watching the show, I had a really conscious feeling of, oh, they just hinted to something that I would understand in all sorts of beautiful detail if I'd read the books, but I haven't. So all it is confusing. And it was just kind of over and over again. And there were just little mentions, obviously kind of like fan service. Like, if you've read the books, here's a little Easter egg for you. And, but it kept hinting at something where I was like, this is actually a pretty big, complex, maybe interesting world that maybe I would enjoy. But man, I couldn't get through his writing. I know the first book is like the first book to me, the 250 pages of somebody rewriting the first book of Lord of the Rings, or not even the first book, the first quarter of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it starts out very much like that. It changes from that. I
assumed it must. You know, I mean, like he's not just rewriting Lord of the Rings.
No, of course not. Not for 14 books. Also, Terry Brooks already did that with Sword of Shannara. So
yeah, exactly.
What's the value in there?
Don't need to rewrite a rewrite of Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
No, I think like when I did my whole like suffering through the entirety of Wheel of Time thing, I do actually appreciate Eye of the World more than some of the later books.
Okay.
Because it shows very much the engagement. He does very much plot-wise. He does rewrite the opening, the first parts of Lord of the Rings very closely, right? You have a lot of the same kind of thing
Idyllic
going
village. 4 people who live in that village. Bad guys show up. They have to flee. They're chased by a dark rider.
They
need a mysterious ranger. Oh, and look, they also meet a mysterious wizard. And I was just like, I've read this book already, and you didn't write it.
But what I find interesting is, and Robert Jordan did write Conan pastiches before he started that. And when you look at how he uses his language and how he creates sentences, they are much closer to like a Robert E. Howard style of writing, when you have like a lot of adverbs tacked onto a sentence, which is that like 1930s pulp style that you also see in H.P. Lovecraft, who uses way too many words to say the same thing. And he does the same thing with his book. So it's basically, if Robert E. Howard was rewriting Lord of the Rings, that's kind of what you get. And the rest of the story kind of oscillates between those two ways of writing fantasy, the more like action-driven pulp style of a Robert E. Howard and the idea of epicness that you get with Tolkien.
Yeah,
and I think the problem is that Robert Jordan, like so many American authors, does not understand Tolkien's or how Tolkien creates epicness. So he just goes like, I'll just make it huge. That's epic, right? And I'm like, no, that's not how that works.
Well, you can't take Conan and stretch it out into a, trilogy size huge novel. They're meant to be the size they are for a reason. And
it's why Hour of the Dragon already starts to drag at the end, because it's a Conan novel, and Conan is not a novel character.
No, right. I recently, just as a sort of break in between Realm of the Elderlings books, I slipped in Nine Princes in Amber, the first.
I love that one.
Corwin cycle.
Amber so much.
I love Amber a lot as well, and it's been, I've read it 3 times before, I think, but it's been a decade or 2.
Yeah,
and I was really, first of all, I was really surprised by how much somebody in the 70s packed into 120 pages.
Yeah, it's super short.
Like one of these books, like the Chronicles of Amber, the whole Chronicles of Amber is basically 10 books, but those 10 books together in one volume are 1,200 pages.
Yeah.
Right? And it really, when I tell people to read Amber, it's like, it's 2 books. One of them is 5 books, but read it as one, and it's first person by one guy. And then the second is another book, which is also 5 small books, and it's first person by his son.
Yeah.
Right. So read them as 2 books. Don't think of them as individual books, but they're really good to slip in between something else. And the writing style, the characters are almost
there's so much snarkiness in there, and so much like irony and self-referential stuff. It's great.
The character development, I mean, they're very, very 1 or 2 dimensional characters. They're archetypes.
Yeah.
Right. They're
it's
really,
kind of the
really
point.
Yeah, it's totally the point. I mean, it exactly fits what he's doing, what the story's about, and whatever. I mean, there's even a physical element in the book that points out that they are archetypes.
Yeah.
And they feel like archetypes, and the style it's written in, the first person, the voice of the first person, Corwin, who's narrating the whole thing, is a little bit detective novel, like 30s detective novel. It's very short and choppy. We were talking about it earlier. But it's really interesting to contrast that with one of these.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yes, I'm reading Robin Hobb. I know everything that is going on inside the narrator's head. And he's a deep and complex and flawed and conflicted character who creates his own problems and so on. And that is not at all Amber.
No,
it's really good. I like it a lot. It's really good. Don't get me wrong. It's just totally different. Yeah.
What I find interesting is how modern it still reads, especially compared to something like, say, Wheel of Time. You read Wheel of Time, and it's like published in 1990, and you read Nine Princes in Amber, and it's from the 70s, like 60s, possibly even. I think the first ones were still published in the 60s, right?
I think Nine Princes in Amber is 72, or maybe I'm wrong. I'll check.
I think you might be wrong, but I'm not quite sure. Anyway,
I could totally be wrong. I'm not very smart.
It's like 20 to 30 years older than Wheel of Time, but it feels much more modern and contemporary than Wheel of Time does when you read it nowadays.
Yeah. Wait just a sec. Let me pull it up. Nine Princes. Now I'm curious. I think you might be right. I think it might have been 69 or something like that.
June 1st, 1970.
1970. Okay, so just in the 70s. Yeah. But yeah. Nice books.
The Rogue, yes. Sword of Shannara, I think, is definitely worse than Eye of the World. I always feel bad when it comes to sort of like shitting on Sword of Shannara, because I mean Terry Brooks has admitted that it's not a good book, and you know there was a lot of pressure from the publishers for him to write basically a Lord of the Rings copy and stuff like that. And it's like Shannara got much better afterwards, and I feel bad shitting on that book because everyone knows it's bad, and there's reasons for that.
Yeah, there was a big call for that stuff, though, a huge call back then.
I know.
Yeah, that's why. You know.
If you're a market-driven author, then right now I would be trying to copy Sando.
Or write another fucking Legends and Lattes or something. Yeah. But I think, I think that's part of the problem is exactly that Terry Brooks was a young author, and he got the opportunity to write a novel with a contract for a publisher. You do what they tell you because you want to break into that field. Yep. So I get why it happened, and that's why I feel bad calling Terry Brooks a bad author because of that book is unfair, because he knows, and his books have gotten way different afterwards. So
I mean, also, like, if what he was trying, I read Sword of Shannara when I was like 12 or 14 or something, and back then I was like, cool, more Tolkien, great, that's what I wanted. And if that's what he was trying to do, then maybe he's really actually quite a good author, because he did it really well. Like, it feels very Tolkien, so I don't know.
I've tried to read Sword of Shannara, and like I think I got like 10 or 15 pages in before I was like, nope. But I think the good thing that I did was when the TV show came out, was it 5-6 years ago or something?
Yeah.
I actually read Elfstones, and I really liked Elfstones.
Elfstones is really good.
Okay.
Yeah. Like the set pieces in that, and just how everything, like the different storyline, and just the battle at the very end. I love that. That was so good for me.
I also read Elfstones like when I was 14, 15, and I don't remember it at all at this point. Like, it's been a while.
I remember glimpses, but it's been a long time. It was long
Hello,
time.
Brian from BellTube, who has a brand new channel. Everyone go subscribe. I think the channel is called BellTube.
Yep.
Or is there more in the title? I think it's just BellTube.
On his name. Can you put it on his name?
Yeah, I think there's something interesting there, what Vero said about writings from the 50s and 60s feeling more modern. Yeah. That's because at the time, Lord of the Rings wasn't the genre-defining thing that it is now, because that really starts with the Ace publishing, kind of bootlegging the whole thing and putting it into mass market, into paperbacks, and then Ballantine getting that second edition thing out to restore the copyright, and that's suddenly when everyone can get in the US can get a cheap Lord of the Rings copy. Until then, everyone was just reading pulp novels, which are very different and much more in that American style of writing. When you go and read what's Epic Pooh by Michael Moorcock, he talks about how the American style feels modern, because these people are actually, their influence is not medieval poetry, epic poetry. Their influence is contemporary writing in general, which is like Fritz Lieber and those folks.
Also movies and stuff like that.
Yeah,
television. Yeah.
And that's where that comes from. And then suddenly Lord of the Rings becomes this huge deal, and Ballantine start their adult fantasy series and first republish a lot of like 1920s books because they're cheap. And then they're like, well, we could probably pay someone to write us more sort of Lord of the Rings things. And they settle on one young Terry Brooks and go like, hey, can you write us another Lord of the Rings? And he goes and writes a Sword of Shannara. And that's when that stuff.
Could I make a fair bit of money doing that? Yeah, sure, I can write like Tolkien. No problem. Yeah.
Although I feel like the first person getting close to it was, at the end of the day, Stephen R. Donaldson with
Lord Fell,
Thomas
and
Covenant.
Thomas Covenant. Getting close to what? Getting close to rewriting Tolkien.
Not getting close to understanding what Tolkien is doing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And subverting it, understanding it, and
yeah.
But to subvert it, you need to understand
and making something that was like super totally his own out of where it came from. I mean, like there's nobody in Lord of the Rings anything like fucking Thomas Covenant. Talking about main characters that you want to punch in the neck. Oh my god, he's so frustrating.
He is, but
I love the books. Don't get me wrong. I love the
great
books.
Frustrating.
I'm gonna reread them soon. I've read them twice or three times.
I got frustrated a lot with it the first time, and it was sort of the same thing. And when I read them like fully last year, that first trilogy, yes, Stephen R. Donaldson understands, the loneliness that comes with, physical disabilities and chronic illness. He does understand that idea of being ostracized by society and how that kind of impact leads to trauma in yourself and makes it kind of impossible to get out of that if you're deep enough in. And that's incredibly powerful, but it's
absolutely,
it's not something. It's not something you can read with being 15 and go like, "Wow, this is awesome."
It's also not. I mean, I did read it when I was around 15, and I thought it was awesome. But I think I also probably understood about 20% of it. Really, like the deeper themes and all the shit going on with that fucked up character. Oh my god!
I definitely got a lot more out of it in my 30s than I did in my early 20s. Yeah.
I originally read it, I think I was mid-teens, late teens, and then I reread it late 20s, early 30s, and got a lot more out of it. And I want to reread it soon. DK Moon says it made him choose white gold for his high school class ring. Guess what, DK Moon? Me too. I actually went to I graduated high school in America. I mean, I was back and forth Australia, America quite a lot. So Australians don't get class rings because class rings are fucking silly. But I was in America.
Yeah, Germans don't get them either.
No, when I graduated, I was in America, and I got a white gold ring as well. It was very hard to convince my parents to pay for it, but they did it.
Did it get you wild magic though?
Well, I haven't found the way to get into the place where my ring would do that yet. In this world, it doesn't. Maybe also the problem is I'm not actually a leper or an asshole. So,
although to be fair, even Covenant doesn't figure out how to use the wild magic once he's in the place where it can work.
It takes him a really long time to get anywhere. Eric says the first few hundred pages of Lord Fowl is really tough sledding.
I don't think it's edgelord grimdark. It's very different from that. But there's obviously that one scene that everyone knows about in the first book, and that scene is rough.
For anyone who doesn't know, the main character rapes a teenage girl in the second or third chapter?
It's the
or
third or fourth. Third or fourth.
And that is rough. In the context, if you just take what I said, that of course is horrible. In the context,
but there's so much context.
It's still horrible.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of the point.
And it becomes essentially the motivation for the main character for the rest of the 6-book series. It's not that it's treated trivially or just like a throwaway. Yeah. And the main thing is he doesn't even believe it's real.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't believe that the place he is real, that the girl is real, that he feels like he's having a dream where he can do anything because it doesn't matter. Not that makes it forgivable to do something like that, even in your imagination, but it's a very different thing than actually like walking out of your house right now.
No, but the point is, it's delved into, it's explored. It's all explored. The whole themes are explored. Yeah. Everything is. It's not like it's a throwaway thing that happens in the book.
It did annoy me in the first book because it kind of gets dealt with in the second or even the third book.
Yeah.
Because he deals with it the entire time, but he's the guy who did it. And the
everybody else also has to deal with it, obviously.
Yeah, but what annoyed me when I read it is that the girl he rapes, she kind of vanishes from the whole thing immediately, and you don't get her story during that first book. And focusing on the guy coming to terms with the fact that he just committed a crime is one thing, but to not get the perspective of the person, of the victim or survivor or whatever you want to use in that context. That kind of irked me, but you obviously get part of it later on. So there
you get
is
a lot
something
later
there.
on, like her family and her and all of that. It's a big deal. It's not a throwaway stupid thing he does or something like that. There are a lot of consequences. Yes, Okie Dude, the main guy is a leper. Thomas Covenant is a leper.
Which is an interesting and important aspect because, yes, leprosy was still a thing in the 60s and 70s. And Thomas, like Stephen Donaldson's father, and that's kind of where that comes from. Like Donaldson's father was a doctor and he worked in India. In clinics with lepers.
A leper colony,
in a leper colony. So there's... we often think of like leprosy as this like medieval thing, and it's like, no, this is still out there.
It's still out there, but it was much more. It was still out there in the
60s and 70s.
Yeah, exactly. And Okie Dude, you know what? Your response is exactly part of the reason that he felt motivated to act the way he was acting. That lepers are icky. Like that is dealt with a lot in the beginning of the first novel, that he's ostracized, he's kind of outside of society, he doesn't have any physical contact with anyone, he doesn't have any real emotional contact with anyone, he's an outcast completely, and that is a lot of his motivation at the beginning of the books. I'm interested to reread them. I've got a set. I was hoping I could get the old ones, the old covers. They're so simple, but I just loved them. And they're original covers that I read, where they have like a big picture across the whole cover of a landscape, and then they have a circle in the middle with an illustration in it. I couldn't get those. I got some that don't look like they have anything to do with the story. But I've got them. I want to reread them. Good night, Cab.
I got the collections that have like 3 novels in one.
Oh, okay. I've got a paperback.
The first and second Chronicles.
6.
No, I don't think I don't think he wanted to make his audience as uncomfortable as possible. But I think the main issue there is to understand how we treat people that we deem outside of society. And that's what I talked about it last year in a video when I had like this moment where I felt really bad for myself, and being someone with a physical disability, that it's kind of hard to hide when you actually step out of your room. I do sometimes feel that of being othered, of being outside, because people treat you differently when you look different, and that's sort of part of that. It's like how you're seen outside and how you are treated as less or just not part of human society. And we need human society and human connections. And if those are suddenly taken away, that turns you into like a very damaged person indeed. That's very much the point there. It's like to understand that we are doing that to people like Thomas Covenant. And that's the point.
Kat and Vero and Jerome are all leaving. Is it because we mentioned a rape scene in a book, or are you just tired? I hope we didn't drive you away. I mean, totally fine if that's too much for you. I can understand that a lot. Ron also says, this is the worst bit, is Thomas Covenant is seen as a hero in this world and needs help, and he is helped by the mother of the girl. But just because of the social situation and him being recognized as this legendary hero, she has to help him. So, I mean, what I found really interesting about it was, obviously all of this stuff is like way not Tolkien. This is far from Tolkien. And it's happening in a Tolkien-ish world, but the situations he's setting up and the relationships with the characters and the tensions and the conflicts are very not Tolkien. And he was really exploring different areas, different directions.
The mature reader's label that before the mature reader's label existed.
I think what really helps, like Donaldson wrote this essay about it, and then he kind of rewrote it later, and one of them is called Epic Fantasy Necessary Literature, and the other one, the older one, I keep forgetting.
Literature of
reconciliation. Yeah, that's the reintegration. Yeah. And I think it really helps reading those essays to see what he's doing, and then you can still figure out whether he actually succeeds in doing the thing he sets out to do, or if you need to actually read the handbook to understand what he's trying to do. That's a different discussion, but I think they really help to understand what his point is.
Joe, I think as far as handsome goes, I think Pete makes up for the rest of us. And as far as the facial hair goes, Raph clearly wins. Yeah, I mean, mine's the grayest. Mine's probably the grayest.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah. I got the gray.
I still got all black up here. It's a mystery.
I'm all gray.
But
I got you beat there.
from like my eyes down, it's all gray. You got something to look forward to, Raph.
Yeah, I can't wait because I mean I'm almost 40 now, and I still haven't started.
You're almost 40?
Yeah, I'm 39.
I never would have guessed that. I would have guessed you were younger.
I told you I try to stay stupid.
Maybe that's what it is.
Probably, but I can't wait to get gray and get that
Raph
Gandalf
can't be
look.
39. He's far too dumb for that. Possible.
I actually got my first senior citizen discount last Saturday.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, for my haircut.
How old are you?
55. First time.
You get senior citizen discounts at 55?
At some places, yeah.
Fuck off.
Yep.
Nobody in Germany is going to give you that until you're like 65 or 70.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I'm turning 54 in a month. I'm not going to get any discounts anytime soon.
Yeah. So I'll get an occasional $1 off a haircut or a free cup of coffee.
Wow, that's going to save you in your old age.
I know. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can't wait to get gray hair and rock that Gandalf look.
There you
go. You're already set with like the hair and the beard. You're set. You just need to.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's my goal. It's when I finally get respectability is when I start to look like a wizard.
For Halloween next year, you can go as young Gandalf.
Young Gandalf, yeah.
You've got the hair, just not the color
yet. But that's the thing. Like young Gandalf should wear like your 1950s James Dean style outlaw clothes, right? Your leather jacket.
True.
He doesn't have shadow facts. He just rolls on like on his motorbike.
A Harley. Maybe he's got a leather. He's got a robe, but it's like a leather robe with studs on the shoulders or something.
like in that one. Have you read Soul Music, one of the Discworld novels, when rock and roll comes to Discworld?
I have not. I've only read Guards. I haven't read anything beyond Guards.
Soul Music is fantastic. It's like rock and roll comes to Discworld, and the wizards start getting it too. And then the dean makes this leather robe, and they put studs on the back that say "Born to Ruin," which is just such a good joke.
Nice.
Thornall says Gandalf was born old, which I guess is true. Yeah, considering he wasn't.
I think it's kind of the problem.
Really born at all.
If you're an immortal being, I guess you're definitely old when you start out.
Although I would also imagine that you could kind of, because they're like when the wizards come to Middle Earth, aren't they all basically either ageless or the same age, whatever, and they choose to look different ways? Like the blue wizards were meant to be much younger looking than Gandalf, although we never see them in the novels. But they were meant to be.
Yeah, I think, and Radagast the Brown.
Radagast looks younger,
right?
Yeah,
I think it's very much a choice kind of thing. I mean, they're sort of like angels, right? They're not Valar, they're Maya, and the Maya are sort of like archangels or angels, kind of in that idea. And angels obviously can change their shape and appearance. Yeah.
I guess spoilers for Lord of the Rings, by the way, people.
Well, spoilers for parts of the Silmarillion, or like the appendices of the rings.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually, I just the video I cut this morning, which will be out tomorrow, was just sort of an intro because I want to do a Lord of the Rings reread, and like my I don't know how many reread. I've lost count, but I want to do vlogs about it so that I can really just sort of, as I'm going along, capture some thoughts, especially as someone who's older and has read them many, many times and has a warm, cozy blanket of nostalgia where it comes to those books. And I'm slightly nervous that my nostalgia might be shaken now that I've read a lot of other things.
I think they hold up really well. I'm certainly a very critical reader, in some regards at least.
No, really? You?
Not me. I last reread them earlier this year, which is why I'm usually I read Lord of the Rings in the autumn because they're like autumn books to me. It's like
they are totally autumn books to me too.
You gotta drink tea and eat like the first Christmas cookies of the year, and it's raining outside. That's Lord of the Rings weather.
Exactly. Cuddled up in a blanket with a fire in the fireplace.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, I did actually read him earlier this year, like in February, I think. Yeah. That's why I had to go for like the methadone alternative, which is obviously the Ted Williams books that I'm currently reading, because they're sort of like I already read Lord of the Rings this year.
Which ones are you? Oh, you're reading Memories Are
the Memories Are Thorn. I just finished Dragonbone Chair, and I'm like a third into Stone of Farewell. And I fear I might be stalling because I did enjoy Dragonbone Chair, but I remember having some issues even back when I read them for the first time with the second and third book, and I'm worried that those issues will just be more pronounced now, or I'll be less forgiving about some of the ways he deals with female characters and stuff like
right. Yeah. That's one of the things I immediately noticed, which I didn't notice when I was a teenager when I first read Amber. Like, women exist in Amber to either be weaker than men or to have sex with, basically, or at least in the first book.
Most of them, yes.
In the first book, there are exactly 3 women in the whole book. One of them Corwin sleeps with. The other 2 are useless, and like clearly stated as being non-threatening, not very powerful, and kind of useless.
Yeah, so I think it gets slightly better.
Time. It does.
Yeah,
it does.
It gets slightly better. I don't want to say, I would never call it like subverting anything, but the way with that one relationship or not relationship with Merlin's mother, there's a level of Corwin basically being a massive sexist, and that's kind of going to bite him in the ass there, in a way.
Yeah.
So there's a level of awareness there, but it's certainly not up to 2020's standards.
Yeah. I wanted to ask earlier something else, and I will especially ask it now because Pete has been so quiet and patient, just sitting here listening to me and Raph talk. You mentioned earlier, Pete, I think you sort of did a fist pump about Dandelion Dynasty.
Yes.
Gush about it. Get me excited. I've got the first book on my shelf. I have a strong feeling that it will be right up my alley.
Yeah, I think.
Tell me more.
I think so. First of all, I think you have to understand that, being exposed to his short stories, you have a good taste of him already, and his style definitely feels like short stories. Right. And then he also, I believe, it's also kind of like an Asian style or East Asian writing style where you, I don't precisely know where the origins of it are, but you introduce a character and then you tell the entirety of their backstory in like the next few chapters. He does that a lot in Grace of Kings, and it kind of backs off a little bit, and he only does it for like very significant characters in the rest of the series, but he still does it, and it's definitely a little jarring. He also likes to go on about the engineering.
Right. And engineering, like, there isn't exactly magic, as I understand it. And engineering is kind of the magic-ish.
For the most part. There are some magical elements.
Okay.
That's mostly in, like, the gods, which the gods exist and they actually have, like, POVs and stuff. And it's really cool.
Okay.
The gods are a really big thematic element.
Right.
I've held off on reading it because everyone, like earlier this year, everyone was suddenly reading Dandelion Dynasty and everyone was loving it and praising it, and that usually makes me incredibly suspicious.
I would love to see.
I'm a contrarian at heart, and I'm like, there's a non-zero chance I will not like this book.
Look, if you don't like it and you want to make a video tearing it apart, that would be great, because I want to make sure I'm not just being brainwashed by the masses, of course.
Yeah.
Didn't Ken Liu also translate the
yes.
That
Three Body
thing?
Problem.
Yeah, that's the book.
Yeah. And that trilogy. Yeah, no, and I've also seen a few interviews with him, and I'm just like, oh wow, okay, he's scary smart.
He's really smart.
Yeah.
He's some of the engineering, a lot of the stuff that's like engineered in the books, he's actually made from what I know.
Yeah,
like to make sure it would work.
But technically, he's a lawyer
and an engineer, and whatever the heck else he is.
Author.
Lawyer, engineer, author. I think there's one more besides that as well.
Translator. Yeah. Yeah. No, scary, smart dude.
Yeah.
But also seemed like a nice guy. I mean, he actually seemed, I don't know, maybe kind of very reserved. You know, like
but when you get him talking.
Yeah. No. I mean, he got rolling on a few things, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'll just sit here and listen because you're saying lots of smart shit I don't understand completely.
The perfect interviewee.
Yeah.
I'll be doing like my first author interview after I talked to Stephen Erickson, like very early on, very soon, and I'm incredibly excited. We'll just need to iron out the dates and figure out whether it's going to be a live stream or a recorded one. I'll be talking to, if all goes well, I'll be talking to Nicola Griffith, who
I've never heard of.
You should definitely go and check out her stuff. She's incredibly talented. She wrote Spear, which is part of the Arthurian stuff that I read earlier this year.
Okay,
and she wrote Hild and Meanwood, which are two historical novels about the life of the person who became Saint Hilda of Whitby. So it's like 7th century British history. With the one source text that we have is like 2 chapters in the Venerable Bede's Ecclesiastical History of the Peoples of England.
Okay.
And it's definitely the best historical fiction I've read about that era. You read those 2 books and you'll understand why Bernard Cornwell's Arthur trilogy is absolute trash.
Nice.
It's masterful.
Why am I not surprised that Raph uses a really good author to diss another author that everyone likes? No surprise there.
I've read, I've done a bit of Arthurian reading earlier this year, and I read those the Arthur trilogy by Bernard Cornwell, and I did not enjoy it for a lot of reasons. I've read other Bernard Cornwells before.
I'm always afraid of reading modern Arthur stories because I love Lamort, and Lamort is a very specific kind of book, and a modern retelling where new characters are introduced and lots of details are changed and that kind of stuff. I think I'm too much of a Lamort Arthur hardliner to enjoy those.
I think you might enjoy Spear, because Spear is very much based sort of around the Peredur, which is the Welsh version of the Percival story from the Mabinogion. It's much closer to that than it is to anything Mort d'Arthur.
Right.
So that helps. It's short. It's very, very lyrical. It's amazing in that regard. And my favorite Arthurian retelling out there is By Force Alone by Lavi Tidar, which is sort of like taking a chainsaw to the entire thing with gusto.
That sounds like you.
It is, however, also the probably best researched version of an Arthurian retelling. He gets way more details about Mort d'Arthur, right, and manages to reference way more stuff from original texts than many of the Arthurian retellings you get today.
My only answer
converts them into all kinds of weird places.
to Okie Dude, who says I don't really like Arthurian legends in general, come at me. My only answer would be, if you like fantasy, you like Arthurian legends. Shut up.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I did read a bunch of Arthurian for this short video I did on Arthurian literature earlier this year, and I did read. I love the Mark Twain one, the Connecticut Yankee. That was way better than I thought it would be.
Yeah,
that's it's a fun story. Yeah, it's a fun story. Yeah,
also, when it's been sort of adapted into movies and stuff so many times, and for some reason they always leave out the genocide.
Surprise, surprise.
But it's in there, and it's such. I mean, obviously, I love it because it's such an angry, anti-capitalist rant of a book.
This is an unfair question, but which of us has seen the Green Knight movie? It's unfair because I know that Raph obviously hasn't.
I have not.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I loved it. I love the Green Knight story, just in general. I've read a number of different versions of it. It's a very popular story to retell.
Didn't Tolkien do a story?
Tolkien did a version, a written version of it.
I read that.
He actually did like a translation of it. That's the point.
Right.
A translation of like one of the original older texts.
Yeah, I read that.
It's part of Le Morte d'Arthur. Like it's a story that happens in Le Morte d'Arthur as well. There have been so many different versions of it. It's super, super popular. The movie did what I thought the movie did a really, really good job. I mean, I'm a sucker for visuals. Like if the visuals are spectacular, creative, weird, interesting, I'm into a movie just for that. But also it made it, the whole story is kind of a dream sequence anyway. Not in the story really, but it's just a dreamy, weird kind of story. And a lot of the old Arthurian stories just feel like a series of dreams kind of strung together.
Yeah.
And the Green Knight movie did that very well. It felt trippy and weird and dreamy and had stunning visuals. So it was cool.
There's some interesting stuff about like what the especially the Green Knight story, what happens there and what it kind of deals with that old conflict that you have with a lot of Arthurian tales at the time, that ongoing conflict between, I mean, it's mostly it's a Lancelot story, it's a Gawain story, and there's like politics behind all of that, the fact that Gawain is sort of like a Scottish knight versus and that whole conflict between the Christianity and the idea of following a Christian godly spiritual life versus the responsibilities of a worldly knight to the people that they're dealing with. There's so much happening in that story. If you look at the themes that it deals with, depending on which version you're reading, you can kind of look at where in that ongoing argument they are in history, and that makes like especially those like individual stories of Le Morte d'Arthur and those different romances very interesting when you look at what's going on in those.
Yeah. The other layer of all of that for me is my favorite role-playing game is King Arthur Pendragon.
It's such a good game.
It's such a good game.
An amazing. And I've always wanted to play the whole Pendragon campaign.
Yeah, fuck off. Nobody has ever played the whole Great Pendragon campaign. I know a guy who is now the line editor for the new Pendragon game.
Yeah,
Dave Larkins. And he did the entire Great Pendragon campaign, and it took him and his group, I think, 4.5 years to play through the whole thing. For those of you who don't know, King Arthur Pendragon is a role-playing game where you play knights in King Arthur's court, or in King Arthur's world anyway. And there is a game supplement called the Great Pendragon campaign. And it starts, if you really want to do the whole thing, it starts when Uther is king. So King Arthur's father is still king. It starts before Uther impregnates King Arthur's mother. And then it goes through Uther and the decline of Uther and his kingdom. And then Arthur gets recognized when he draws the sword and out of the stone, and so on and so forth. And it goes all the way up until after Arthur's death. And that's one game supplement. And you play, generally the way you play Pendragon is you play 1 year is one session, right? Yeah. So you do one adventure in summer, and then you do, everyone is considered to be wintering, because at that time nobody really ran around in the world during the winter when the weather was bad.
You kind of roll about like what your family does and whether your character kind of fathers children, and then you at some point you play the children of your first character and go through the entire dynasties. It's a whole thing.
And if you play the full Great Pendragon campaign, it is 60 years,
something like that.
I think something like that. Yeah. So if you've got a very disciplined group, and you're sticking to one session a year, it's going to take a year and a few months.
Yeah.
So
nobody does have that group, though.
Nobody has that group, and a number of adventures are kind of weird, long, extended ones, which would happen in a summer of game time, world time, but you have to play them in 3 or 4 sessions. Yeah. So it's 1 year, 3 or 4 sessions. So it like most people I know who started it, I've started the Great Pendragon campaign running it twice and not finished it.
So
ever.
What you're saying is you're going to try to put together a booktube game of the Great Pendragon campaign.
I've been right now. I am in conversation with Dave Larkins, who is the line editor, and I'm waiting any day now. I should get the brand new Pendragon 6 rulebook in PDF form.
I do still have the 5th in hardcover, which was really hard to find for a while.
I think I've got all of the editions somewhere on my shelf.
Do you also have the Prince Valiant game?
30 years, I do. I have the Prince Valiant game, which is played with coins. You flip coins instead of rolling dice.
It's so funny.
It's a weird game, but I've been thinking about running another Pendragon campaign. And I've also had the idea of running a game for BookTube friends. So
see, I've had had both ideas as well, Matt. We should probably start talking about this at some point. Because it would be weird if we all start running campaigns for BookTube friends at the same time.
Thornell asks,
now that we're doing long form content.
Thornell asks, can you change major events like making Mordred king? Sort of. Like, I mean, essentially, a role-playing game, no matter what is in the rules, no matter what is in the supplement, you can do whatever the fuck you want because it's your game. Play it the way you want to play it, right? I had a game, for example, where the very first adventure,
I'll let you tell your war story. I'm going to fetch myself another beer. I'll be back in a minute.
Before they even got to what was actually meant to be the adventure, they ran into a knight on the road who challenged them. And I warned them. I said, look, this guy clearly knows what he's doing. He's got really good quality gear. He's older. He's obviously a badass.
Don't you hate it when they don't listen?
Well, what happened was the first knight charged him, lances. The other knight, the challenger knight, knocks the first character off his horse. Didn't kill him. He was hurt badly, but he was okay. The second guy got an amazing roll and killed the challenger knight, who was King Pellinor. If you know the Arthurian myths, King Pellinor plays a really important role in a number of things that happen over like a 30-year period. I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out other things that are.
Now you have a lot more work to do
with Pellinor. Yeah,
so much more work to do.
We've got a battle coming up next week where Pellinor is meant to save everything and end the battle, and I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah,
rocks fall, they die.
Yeah, I actually had a game where rocks fell and they died. I warned them about the rocks. I did. I warned them. More of a Norse myth guy. Okie dude, have you read Neil Gaiman's Norse myth retelling? It's really nice.
It's awesome. Yeah, I love that book.
I've been a big fan of Norse mythology for a very long time, and he came out with that, and I was like, okay, it's not complete and comprehensive or anything, but it's very well done.
Did you read the comic version with P. Craig Russell artwork?
I didn't realize there was one.
It is fantastic. It's one of the best comic adaptations you'll ever read. It's
all right,
outstanding. Cool. Yeah,
I would love to see it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. No, Thornell, like if you're running the Great Pendragon campaign, basically things the characters don't fuck with happen as they should. Right? So Gawain is the guy who goes off with the Green Knight, and has the Green Knight adventure. So Morgan Le Fay pulling the sword out of the anvil would be something I, as the game master, would have to change, and I wouldn't do that because it is, after all, called Pendragon, the game.
Theoretically, the players could manipulate events to get to that end goal.
They could theoretically
try really hard to be like, all right, Morgan Le Fay, you should do it. You should go for it. We'll charm the stone.
I'll tell you though. Well, actually,
down the blade.
Actually, there, depending on why you in your campaign decide that the sword is stuck in a stone, you could Morgan Le Fay could theoretically unmagic it and pull it out. Like, because really the sword in the stone is just Merlin manipulating things to make sure Arthur becomes king.
Yeah.
And he's magicked the sword into the stone to make sure that no one can draw it except one guy, Arthur.
Yeah.
Right. And if Morgan Le Fay could break that spell, she could pull it out, or have some knight of her favor pull it out. But that would be a very, very different Great Pendragon campaign. In fact, it would not be a Great Pendragon campaign at all.
It's great.
Pendragon is Arthur. Yeah, exactly. The Great Morgan campaign. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing, and I like the scope of vision that Greg Stafford had for that thing, and you can tell amazing. It's very much like his labor of love, and he just puts so much like knowledge, like obscure author knowledge in there. It's not just someone who's read Mists of Avalon and Once and Future King. It's very different.
No.
This is extremely well researched.
And he very clearly also said and writes in the books, Lamort is the primary source.
Yeah.
It's coming much more from there than anywhere else. And other interesting development, they are rewriting the Great Pendragon campaign.
Oh.
It's going to be 2 books. It's going to fix a lot of the problems with the Great Pendragon campaign, of which there are many. If you're trying to run it as a GM, it's a nightmare. And
is it still from done by Chaosium, or does someone else have the right?
No, it's Chaosium.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Larkins works for Chaosium.
Okay.
And yeah, I get a lot of insider Chaosium knowledge because one of my best friends, Jason, who was here this afternoon, who I was drinking with, works for Chaosium and is the line editor for RuneQuest. So I get all the inside Chaosium goss when I want it. Guys, it is 11 here, and we've been here for 2 hours, or at least I have. Yeah. Some of you joined a bit later. Yeah, I am going to say cheers.
Yeah,
and thank you for joining me. I want to do this regularly, as I've been saying in numerous places. I want to do this. Sunday afternoons are almost always good for me. I rarely have things. Everything's closed in Germany on Sundays. So you can't go out and do much. So Sunday afternoons, evenings work well for me. I will, as I have been, or as I did today, I will post a join link and a watch link in my channel on the Grimoire Discord on Sundays and let people know when it's happening and whether you can, or how you can join or watch. And it was great having you all here. It was great having you all in the comments here. And maybe see you next Sunday.
Sure. Maybe.
Yeah, it's nice to see you guys.
Well,
yeah.
Good seeing you. Good meeting you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cheers.
Cool.
Cheers.
Cheers.
See you, everybody.
Cheers.
Have a good week.